Young and the Restless spoilers, full episodes, Thursdays, the 26th of March, 2026. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. The heavy mahogany door of the Las Vegas penthouse clicked shut with a sound like a ceiling vault. Adam Newman exhaled, loosening his tie, the adrenaline of the casino floor still humming in his veins. He turned around, expecting the empty, sterile luxury of his suite. Instead, he found himself staring down the dark, hollow barrel of a suppressed 9mm handgun. At the other end of the weapon stood Reza Thompson. "Hello, Spider," she murmured, her voice as smooth and lethal as black ice. Adam froze his hands instinctively, rising to chest level. The neon glow of the strip filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long, fractured shadows across Riza's face. She looked exactly as she had during his amnesiac days in the Vegas underbelly, poised immaculate, the undisputed queen of the poker scene. But the warmth that had once existed between them, the camaraderie of outcasts, was entirely gone. Her eyes were flat dead, calculating. "Riza," Adam said, keeping his tone measured, burying the sudden spike of panic beneath years of Newman's stoicism. "Is this how we greet old friends now? I thought we were going to negotiate." "We were," Riza replied, "not moving an inch. Until I realized you were lying to me. You didn't come to Vegas to get back in the game, Adam. You didn't come because of your family's financial collapse. You came hunting." Adam's jaw tightened. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't insult my intelligence," she snapped, the gun trembling just a fraction to emphasize her point. "You're looking for Matt Clark." The name hung in the air, toxic and heavy. Adam's blood ran cold. He and Nick had been so careful. They had tracked the whispers, the burner phones, the shell companies from Los Angeles to Nevada. They thought they were closing the net on the man who had tormented their family for decades, the ghost who had risen from the dead to terrorize Sharon and shatter Nick's leg in that brutal car crash. "How do you know that name?" Adam asked, dropping the facade. The air in the room seemed to thin. Reza let out a dry, humorless laugh. "How do I know him, Adam? You really have been out of the loop." "I don't just know Matt. I protect him." Adam stared at her, the pieces of a horrifying puzzle snapping into place. You're working for him." "Working for him?" Reza's lips curled into a sneer. "I am the Western Seaboard distributor for his entire operation. You thought Matt was just some petty thug nursing a 30-year grudge against your brother. You thought those fentanyl pills planted in Nick's jacket were just a cruel prank." She stepped closer, the gun now inches from Adam's chest. "Matt Clark isn't just a ghost, Adam. He's an empire, and I am the linchpin that holds his Western syndicate together." The revelation hit Adam like a physical blow. The threat went far beyond a personal vendetta. Matt had spent his years in the shadows building a massive, sprawling criminal network. He was moving millions of dollars of narcotics, poisoning the streets, and Reza, the woman who had once protected Adam when he was vulnerable, was his top lieutenant. By coming to Vegas, Adam hadn't just kicked a hornet's nest. He had walked blindfolded into a minefield. "Riza, listen to me," Adam pleaded, his mind racing for leverage. "Matt is a psychopath. He raped Sharon. He framed Nick for murder. He is using you. Whatever he's paying you, whatever power he's promised, Victor can double it. I can get you out." "I don't need to be saved, Spider," she whispered. "I am the danger." Before Adam could formulate another desperate plea, the electronic lock on the penthouse door beeped. The door burst open, crashing violently against the wall. Nick Newman stumbled into the room, and the delicate, terrifying balance of the standoff shattered in an instant. Nick was a wreck. The golden boy of Genoa City, the righteous Newman patriarch, had been reduced to a trembling, sweating shell of his former self. His face was ashen, his pupils pinned to tiny dark specks. His breathing was ragged, a wet, desperate sound that filled the sudden silence of the room. The fentanyl had its hooks buried deep in his brain, rewiring his every instinct. He was supposed to stay downstairs, supposed to wait for Adam's signal. But the addiction had eroded his patience, his logic, and his sanity. Adam Nick rasped, leaning heavily on his cane, his shattered leg trembling beneath his weight. "Did you get it? Did she tell you where Matt is? I need to find him." Nick's eyes darted wildly around the room, finally landing on Riza and the gun. But instead of freezing, instead of recognizing the lethal danger, they were in Nick's drug-addled brain, reacted with pure, reckless aggression. "You," Nick bellowed, dropping his cane. It clattered loudly against the hardwood floor. He lunged forward, his bad leg buckling, sending him crashing into a side table. A heavy crystal vase shattered the noise, echoing like a gunshot through the penthouse. "You know where he is? Tell me where Matt is. He ruined my life. He ruined my leg." "Nick, stop!" Adam roared, throwing his hands out. But Nick's reckless outburst had already done its damage. The crashing vase and Nick's screaming had alerted the men waiting in the hall. Heavy footsteps thundered outside. The door, which Nick had left ajar, was kicked wide open. 3 massive men in dark suits flooded into the room, their own weapons drawn and leveled at the Newman brothers. The vulnerability Nick had created was absolute. They were completely surrounded. Nick, oblivious to the tactical nightmare, tried to push himself up from the floor, his hands desperately patting his own pockets. He was looking for his pills. He was crashing, the phantom pain in his leg flaring into a blinding agony, the withdrawal symptoms beginning to clog his nervous system. "Where are they?" Nick muttered, feverishly ignoring the guns pointed at his head. I just need one, just to take the edge off. Tell Matt I'll kill him. I'll kill him. Adam moved instantly, stepping directly between Riza's gun and his brother's trembling body. He raised his hands higher, projecting a desperate calm he did not feel. "Riza, look at him," Adam said, his voice dropping to a low, intense frequency. "He's out of his mind. The fentanyl your boss planted on him, it's destroying him. He's not a threat to you. He doesn't even know where he is. Let me get him out of here. We'll leave Vegas. We'll drop it." Riza's expression remained impassive, though. A flicker of disgust crossed her features as she looked down at Nick, who was now shivering on the floor, clutching his ruined leg. "It's too late for that," Adam, Riza said softly. "You know how this world works. You were Spider. You know I can't let you walk out of here with what you know. Matt gave explicit orders. If the Newmans get too close, we eliminate the problem." "You're going to shoot the sons of Victor Newman in a Bellagio penthouse." Adam challenged his mind, calculating distances, angles, the positions of the 3 guards. "Do you have any idea the hellfire that will rain down on you, Victor, will burn this city to the glass to find you?" "Victor won't find anything but ashes," Riza countered, nodding to her men. "Bind them. We're taking them to the desert." One of the guards stepped forward, pulling a pair of heavy zip ties from his jacket. The tension in the room reached a breaking point. Adam looked at the guard approaching him, then down at Nick, who was beginning to hyperventilate his chest, heaving as the panic of withdrawal fully set in. Nick grabbed Adam's ankle, his grip shockingly weak. "Adam, please." Nick whimpered a sound so broken and pathetic it tore at Adam's soul. This was his brother, the man who had always stood on the moral high ground, now brought low by a monster's poison. Adam knew if they let these men tie their hands, they were dead. They would be driven out to the Mojave, shot in the back of the head, and buried in shallow graves. He had to make a decision, a life or death, split-second choice. As the guard reached out to grab Adam's wrist, Adam's old instincts, the brutal survivalist reflexes of Spider, took over. Adam didn't pull away. He stepped into the guard's reach. With blinding speed, Adam grabbed the man's wrist, twisting it violently while driving his knee upward into the guard's groin. The man grunted in pain, doubling over. Adam seized the guard's weapon hand, forcing the barrel of the gun upward just as the man reflexively pulled the trigger. The gunshot was deafening. The bullet shattered the massive chandelier above them, sending a cascade of jagged crystal raining down on the room. Chaos erupted. Riza shouted a command, her own gun tracking Adam, but the falling glass forced her to shield her face. The other 2 guards raised their weapons, blinded by the flashing sparks of the destroyed light fixture. Adam didn't hesitate. He delivered a brutal elbow to the first guard's temple, dropping him instantly. He snatched the dropped weapon from the floor, grabbed Nick by the collar of his jacket, and hauled him to his feet with a surge of adrenaline-fueled strength. "Move," Adam screamed, practically throwing Nick toward the open doorway. They spilled out into the plush, crimson-carpeted hallway just as bullets began to tear through the drywall behind them. Adam fired 2 blind shots back into the room to keep Riza's men pinned down, then wrapped his arm around Nick's waist, dragging his half-delirious brother down the corridor. "My leg, Adam, my leg," Nick cried out, his face contorted in agony as he was forced to put weight on the shattered bone. "Shut up and walk, Nick, or we die right here." Adam barked his eyes, scanning the hallway. He spotted a heavy steel door marked "Service Personnel Only." He shoved Nick toward it, kicking the door open and dragging them both into the dimly lit concrete stairwell of the hotel's back-of-house operations. The heavy door slammed shut behind them, muting the sounds of shouting from the penthouse. But Adam knew it wouldn't last. The criminal network Matt Clark had built was vast. Within seconds, Riza would have the entire hotel locked down. Every exit, every loading dock, every service elevator would be swarming with armed men. Adam practically carried Nick down 2 flights of concrete stairs, the fluorescent lights buzzing angrily overhead. The air smelled of ozone industrial cleaner and the sharp metallic tang of fear. We need to call the police." Nick panted, his head rolling against Adam's shoulder. His skin was ice cold, drenched in a clammy sweat. The police are probably on Matt's payroll. Adam grunted, his muscles burning as he supported his brother's dead weight. Riza doesn't operate this openly unless she owns the local badges. We are completely on our own. They reached the 30th floor landing. Adam pushed through the doors into a labyrinth of service corridors, a maze of laundry carts, ice machines, and exposed pipes. The neon glamour of Vegas was gone, replaced by the grim mechanical guts of the casino. Suddenly, Nick's legs completely gave out. He collapsed onto the cold linoleum floor, taking Adam down with him. Nick curled into a tight fetal position, his body racked with violent, uncontrollable tremors. The fentanyl addiction had reached its terrifying peak. The stress, the physical exertion, and the sheer terror of the shootout had pushed Nick's nervous system into a catastrophic failure. "Nick, hey, look at me," Adam hissed, dropping to his knees and shaking his brother. Nick's eyes rolled back. Foam began to gather at the corners of his mouth. He was seizing his jaw clamped shut so tightly Adam could hear the teeth grinding together. No, not now. Nick, stay with me. Adam pleaded, his hands frantically searching Nick's pockets. He didn't know if Nick was overdosing on a pill he had secretly taken or if the withdrawal was tearing his brain apart. The chaos of Nick's medical emergency paralyzed their escape. Adam couldn't carry a seizing man through a hotel crawling with hitmen, but he couldn't leave him here to die either. He was pinned. Down the long corridor, the unmistakable ding of a service elevator echoed. Adam froze. He dragged Nick behind a massive row of industrial laundry bins, pressing his hand over Nick's mouth to muffle the terrible, ragged gasps of his brother's seizing lungs. Footsteps, heavy, synchronized, and deliberate. Adam peered through the crack between the canvas bins. 4 men in tactical gear carrying suppressed submachine guns stepped out of the elevator. They weren't casino security. They were cartel enforcers. Matt Clark's men. The network was tightening its grip, sealing off every artery of the building. They were cornering them, driving them into a dead end, leaving them hanging by a thread over an abyss. Adam crouched in the shadows, the stolen 9mm heavy and cold in his sweaty palm. He had 12 rounds left. 4 heavily armed men were sweeping the corridor, moving with terrifying military precision. Behind him, his brother was convulsing on the floor, dying from the poison Matt Clark had pumped into his veins. As Adam watched the hitmen approach, a cold, crushing realization washed over him. He had underestimated everything. He had thought he was playing a high-stakes game of poker with Riza. He had thought he could outsmart Matt Clark just as he had outsmarted so many enemies in Genoa City. But Genoa City was a sandbox compared to this. Matt Clark had spent decades cultivating a dark, impenetrable empire. He had armies. He had limitless resources. He had the power to turn Nick Newman into a whimpering addict and the power to trap Adam Newman in a concrete cage in the sky. Adam looked down at his trembling brother, then back at the approaching shadows of the gunmen. The danger was absolute. The trap was sprung. Adam finally understood the true terrifying magnitude of Matt Clark's underworld, and the chilling truth settled into his bones. He hadn't just walked into a trap. He had dragged his brother into a grave. The unforgiving Nevada sun beat down upon the cracked alkaline earth like a physical weight baking the desert floor into a vast shimmering kiln. Miles away from the neon-soaked excess of Las Vegas, the silence of the wasteland was absolute, broken only by the ragged, desperate sound of Nick Newman's breathing. Nick stumbled, his heavy boots kicking up clouds of white dust that clung to his sweat-drenched denim. His vision blurred the horizon, tilting sickeningly before righting itself. Every muscle in his body screamed in agony, a chorus of deep radiating pain that seemed to echo the relentless torment in his mind. Matt Clark. The name was a venom in his veins, an obsession that had driven him out of Genoa City, away from his family and into this barren hellscape. Matt was supposed to be dead, a ghost from a dark past, yet the breadcrumbs had led the Newman brothers here. Nick's trembling hand reached into the pocket of his jacket, his fingers desperately seeking the familiar smooth plastic of the amber prescription bottle. He didn't even look at the label anymore. He popped the childproof cap with the practiced ease of a desperate man. Asterisk. Just one more time he told himself the lie, tasting like ash in his dry mouth. Asterisk. Just enough to take the edge off. Just enough to keep the pain at bay so I can finish this. Asterisk. But as he tipped the bottle back, 3 heavy white pills tumbled into his palm. He didn't hesitate. He swallowed them dry, the bitter taste lingering at the back of his throat. He needed the numbness. He needed the artificial strength to keep moving forward, to hunt down the monster who had terrorized his family. Within minutes, the harsh landscape began to distort. The jagged rocks morphed into grotesque, leering faces. The heat waves shimmering off the desert floor seemed to take the shape of Matt Clark, mocking him, dancing just out of reach. Nick's heart began to hammer against his ribs like a trapped bird. A cold sweat broke out across his forehead, chilling him despite the 100-degree heat. Matt Nick roared, his voice cracking, swallowed instantly by the vast emptiness. His legs buckled. The world spun violently, a carousel of blinding white light and suffocating darkness. His chest tightened, a vice gripping his lungs. He tried to draw a breath, but the air was too thin, too hot. The overdose hit his system with the force of a freight train. Nick collapsed his face, hitting the cracked earth, the empty pill bottle rolling from his slackened grip. The darkness rushed in, absolute and unforgiving. Adam Newman tracked the tire treads through the dust, his jaw set in a hard, unforgiving line. Riza had warned him that the situation was volatile, but Adam hadn't expected Nick to go completely off the rails. They were supposed to be a team, a reluctant fractured team, but a team nonetheless. Instead, Nick had taken off into the wasteland alone, driven by a pill-fueled paranoia that Adam had recognized all too late. The sleek black SUV crested a low ridge and Adam slammed on the brakes. A few hundred yards away, Nick's rented Jeep sat abandoned the driver's side door, hanging wide open like a broken wing. Adam threw his vehicle into park and grabbed his sidearm, his icy blue eyes scanning the horizon. The desert was still, too still. He moved cautiously, following the erratic, dragging footprints that led away from the Jeep. Nick Adam called out the name, tearing from his throat. Then he saw it, a crumpled form lying motionless in the dirt. Adam sprinted the remaining distance, dropping to his knees beside his brother, Nick. "Hey, come on, man, wake up." He grabbed Nick by the shoulder and rolled him onto his back. Adam's breath hitched. Nick's face was ashen, his lips tinted a terrifying shade of blue. His skin was clammy, cold to the touch despite the blistering sun. Adam's gaze darted to the dirt, catching the glint of the amber plastic bottle lying a few inches from Nick's lifeless hand. Adam snatched it up. Empty. "You idiot," Adam hissed, his fingers flying to Nick's neck, pressing against the carotid artery. The pulse was there, but it was thready, erratic, fading fast. Nick was slipping away, his body shutting down under the massive chemical assault. Adam reached for his phone, ready to call for a medevac, when a glint of sunlight catching on metal drew his eyes to the ridge about a mile to the east. A cloud of dust was kicking up. A black pickup truck was navigating the rocky terrain, moving fast. Matt Clark? Adam's blood ran cold, then hot, with a sudden fierce surge of adrenaline. That was him. The ghost. The target. The man who had caused so much suffering. If Adam ran back to his SUV right now, he could intercept the truck at the pass. He could end this once and for all. He could secure his place as the hero who finally eliminated the threat, the son who did what even Victor Newman couldn't do. But to do that, he would have to leave Nick. Adam looked down at his brother, the golden boy of the Newman Empire, the son who had always been afforded the benefit of the doubt, the grace that Adam had been denied. A dark, insidious temptation began to creep into the corners of Adam's mind, a familiar whisper that he had spent years trying to silence. Asterisk. Let him go, times the voice hissed. Asterisk. It would be so easy. Asterisk. Memories flooded Adam's consciousness, a bitter montage of decades of rivalry and resentment. He remembered Nick's self-righteous sneers, the endless lectures about morality, from a man who was currently dying in the dirt from a drug overdose. He remembered the battles over Newman Enterprises, the boardrooms where Nick had publicly humiliated him, painting Adam as the eternal black sheep, the monster who could never be trusted. He remembered the women Sharon Chelsea caught in the crossfire of their toxic brotherly war. If Nick died here today in the middle of nowhere, who would blame Adam? He could say he arrived too late. He could say Nick's addiction had finally claimed him. Victor would mourn, Victoria would weep, but eventually the dust would settle. And Adam would be the only son left standing, the heir apparent, the sole focus of his father's complicated, demanding love. Adam's hand drifted away from Nick's neck. He stood up slowly, his eyes locked on the dust trail of Matt Clark's escaping vehicle. The engine of his own SUV idled nearby, a low, inviting purr. Just 20 minutes. That was all he needed. Nick let out a sudden rattling gasp, a horrific sound of failing lungs fighting for air. His body convulsed in the dirt, a violent spasm that shook the dust from his clothes. Adam looked back down, and the dark fantasy shattered. This wasn't a boardroom rival. This wasn't a competitor for Victor's affection. This was Nicholas, his brother, the man who, despite everything, shared his blood. The man who had, in rare moments of vulnerability, stood by him when the rest of the world had turned their backs. Damn it, Adam cursed the words, a harsh rasp in the dry air. He dropped his gun into the dust. He let the dust trail on the horizon fade from his focus. He made his choice. Adam fell back to his knees, his hands moving with frantic, practiced precision. You're not dying on my watch, Nick. You hear me. I won't let you give me that kind of guilt. He tilted Nick's head back, opening the airway, and pinched his nose. Adam delivered 2 sharp breaths into Nick's lungs, watching his brother's chest rise and fall. He positioned his hands over Nick's sternum and began chest compressions, the rhythmic, forceful thrusts echoing in the silent desert. Asterisk. 1, 2, 3, 4. Asterisk. Sweat poured down Adam's face, stinging his eyes, but he didn't stop. He poured every ounce of his strength into keeping Nick's heart pumping, fighting against the toxic tide of the painkillers. Come back, Nick. Fight it, Adam yelled, his voice cracking with a raw, unfiltered panic he hadn't known he was capable of feeling for his brother. After what felt like an eternity, Nick's chest, he heaved. He gagged, rolling to the side as his body violently rejected the contents of his stomach. Adam supported him, a hand resting firmly on his brother's trembling back. That's it. Adam coaxed his breathing ragged. Get it out. You're okay. Nick was barely conscious, his eyes rolling back in his head, but he was breathing on his own. The pulse at his neck was stronger, now a steady, defiant thrum against Adam's fingertips. We have to get you out of this heat, Adam muttered, wrapping Nick's arm over his shoulder. Gritting his teeth against the strain, Adam hauled Nick to his feet. Nick was dead weight, his boots dragging through the dirt as Adam half-carried, half-dragged him toward the idling black SUV. Every step was an agonizing battle against the elements and gravity. The sun seemed to press down on them with malicious intent, but Adam refused to falter. He shoved the passenger door open, maneuvering Nick into the leather seat and cranking the air conditioning to its maximum setting. The blast of cold air was a shocking contrast to the inferno outside. Adam slammed the door shut and leaned against the side of the vehicle, gasping for air, his muscles trembling from the exertion. He had done it. He had pulled his brother back from the brink. As he walked around to the driver's side, his boot crunched on something metallic. Adam paused, looking down. Lying in the tire track of his SUV was a sleek silver walkie-talkie. It hadn't been there when he parked. Frowning, Adam picked it up. Taped to the back was a small, crisp white card. The handwriting was elegant, mocking and instantly recognizable to anyone who had spent time studying the ghosts of Genoa City's past. Asterisk. Such a touching display of brotherly love, Adam. You always were the sentimental one when it mattered most. Enjoy your reunion. The game is far from over. MC Asterisk. Adam's grip tightened on the radio until his knuckles turned white. Matt Clark had been close enough to watch, close enough to leave a taunting message while Adam was desperately fighting to save Nick's life. He had used Nick's addiction, his collapse as a distraction to slip through the net. A surge of fury washed over Adam, but as he looked through the tinted glass at his brother's pale, unconscious face, the anger dissolved into a cold, hard resolve. Matt had won the battle today, but he had underestimated the Newmans. He had assumed their internal fractures would be their downfall. Instead, he had just forged an unbreakable alliance. Adam crushed the card in his fist, tossed the walkie-talkie into the desert scrub, and climbed into the driver's seat. He threw the SUV into gear, the tires spinning in the dirt before finding purchase, tearing away from the desolate landscape and racing toward the shimmering skyline of Las Vegas.